Hi, welcome to Serverless Days A and Z. Today we're going to look at creating a DevOps pipeline with GitHub Actions to deploy an Azure function up to Azure. Let's dive in. So I'm not a fan of slides, and in this case, this is my one and only slide, just a notepad file. If you want to get at the source code, let's go to that GitHub repository. Here's the source code that we're going to look at today. It's empty. We get to build it. We've also created an Azure function, and that Azure function app is empty as well. There is one thing that I've done in this GitHub repository beforehand. If I come into settings and I choose secrets, I have created one secret, publish profile. And I got this publish profile by coming into the Azure portal and choosing to download the publish profile. Right here, get publish profile. I downloaded that file, I copied it, I created a new secret, and I pasted that into place. But that's it. No code. Let's go build it. So here's our code locally, and it's empty as well. First up, let's create an Azure Functions app, an Azure Functions project. Func init, hello Azure Functions. Now next it's going to ask us what technology do we want to build this in. Do we want to build it in .NET, Node, Python, PowerShell? There's others as well. And here's where I would ask you, what technology would you like me to build it in? Since I've pre-recorded this, let's assume you said .NET. Okay, now that we have our Azure Functions project, that project can house one or more Azure functions. So now let's go create an Azure function inside of our project. Func new. Nope. CD hello Azure Functions. There we go. Func new. Now, as we're inside of our Azure Function project, it gives us a list of different types of Azure functions we can build. We could build one based on running every time something ends up in an Azure queue, or running every time something new ends up in blob storage, or a SendGrid trigger, or the possibilities are endless, and that's what's really cool. In this case, let's use an HTTP trigger so that when we hit a particular URL, it will run our function. What's the name of our function? Hello Azure. Now with this Hello Azure function, we're ready to go. In VS Code, here's our Hello Azure Functions project, and inside that, we have our Hello Azure function. Now this is just normal C#. It's going to log some things. It'll read a query string. And then based on whether that query string is set, it'll either give us a default message, or we can say, hello name from serverless days A and Z. Perfect. Now that we've got our function set up, let's also create a README in this folder, readme.md, and let's go grab that README. I'm just going to go copy this one into place, copy here. Great. Now we have a README in our project, and let's create a Git repository and start pushing this up to GitHub. I'll start off by saying git init. Now we're inside of a Git repository. Well, in our Git repository right now, it's going to want to commit this .vs code folder. Let's not. Let's ignore that. So I'm going to add .vs code to our git ignore file, and now those settings won't end up in our Git repository. Let's go into the changes screen, and we can take a look at each file and validate that those are the changes that we want. No secrets are escaping into our source code. Let's add all of these files. Level up DevOps. Perfect. So now we've got all of our changes up in Git, or in our Git repository, Git status. Yep, everything's great. Git remote add origin. What's our origin? Well, let's go back to our Git repository and grab that URL and paste it there. Now I am on a main branch. I've set the default branch on my machine to be main, And so that's why it created main rather than master. Git push origin main. I'll push that main branch up to GitHub. Oh, let's force push it. And that's ready to go. Up on GitHub, we can now see that the code that we built for that Azure function is up on GitHub and ready to build. Next up, let's start building a GitHub action. Now there's lots of different templates that we can use to build actions. Rust, Erlang, Docker, Node, and these are only just the templates. Once we get into a particular template, we can customize it exactly to our needs. It's suggesting that we begin with .NET Core. I think that's great. Let's start with a .NET Core build. So this will be the build pipeline. And this build pipeline will do build and publish Azure Functions. Perfect. Now, what branches do we want to run on? Well, we definitely want to run on main, but we probably don't want to run on pull requests. If you're doing a pull request, I don't want to automatically deploy to Azure Functions. Let's do a separate build to do pull requests that won't actually publish. So let's do some other things. What are the steps here? Well, our first step is to check out the code, then we'll set up .NET, and then we'll do some other things. Well, in this case, it's going to grab a specific version of .NET. Let's grab the latest .NET 3.1. At that point, when we get patch releases in .NET, it'll automatically use the latest. That's great. And then let's change this to build and publish, build and package the Azure Functions. Now in this case, we won't do all of these steps. Rather, we'll just give it a bash script. So what are the steps that we need to do? Well, we need to .NET restore, .NET build -c release, .NET test. Well, in our case, we don't have any tests, so let's comment that out. We don't want it to fail because it says, hey, there are 0 tests. Okay, .NET publish -c release -o dist. Now this is not that unlike doing a right-click publish inside Visual Studio. It'll take all that content, build all the DLLs if they need to. We've already done that in this case. And then copy all of that content that we would need to deploy into a folder. In this case, we chose the dist folder. Now we want to publish this up to Azure Functions. So let's go searching through the marketplace for something that does Azure Functions. Now what we see here that's really cool is we could choose to publish our Azure function as a container and run that inside Knative or just inside Kubernetes. That could be a really elegant mechanism for running our functions. But we could also package our Azure function and deploy it to the consumption plan, where we're only paying for runs. Let's do that. Here's that template that we'll need to put in place. So let's copy that in place and paste it there. Indent the YAML correctly. Okay. Publish to Azure Functions. Now, what are the steps that we need to do as we publish to Azure Functions? Well, first step, we need to name our app. Hello, FN. Path to the package folder. Well, we want our package folder to be the dist folder. If we didn't build, we could get this action to do the building and publishing for us. But then what we're publishing is our source code. And we really want to publish all of the built assets instead. Slot name, in this case, we're not going to use slots. And then the publish profile. Now, it is optional. If we chose not to pass it, we would need to use an Azure login action first to be able to log into Azure, or use RBAC to be able to get at that content. In this case, let's go grab the publish profile. Now, we could just start typing that publish profile here, but this file is going to get committed into our repository, and that secret then would leak. Instead, let's go reach into the secret that we created previously, publish profile, and we'll use that secret. The cool part here is that that secret is never exposed, not in the logs, not in the build output, not in our source code repository. It just is referenced here by name. That's it. So our build and publish Azure Functions will only run on main. We'll check out our content. We'll set up .NET Core. We'll .NET Restore, .NET Build, and .NET Publish, the steps associated with our particular language. And then ultimately publish this to Azure, publishing it up to the hello function, Azure function. Great. So now let's commit this. Build DevOps pipeline. That creates a new commit inside of our GitHub repository. And so as we pull this code down next, we'll get that file. It's just a file in our directory. It's inside the .github folder, inside the workflows folder, and it is just a regular file. The cool part, though, is if we're editing this file inside GitHub, the GitHub portal, then we can get this marketplace search tool, which can be really helpful for being able to look at and edit these builds. So we see there's a build running. That's perfect. Let's go into the details for this build. It looks like it's already checked out our code, already set up .NET Core, and now it's building. Ooh, it looks like the build is almost done. And now it's starting to publish to Azure. This is perfect. We don't see any secrets exposed in this. We get all of our content ready to go. And it's also publishing it up to Azure straight away. Go, 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 go. I love to come in here and watch these things go, see all of the things that it's doing for me. I don't need to type up all the commands. I don't need to remember the things. I just git push and away it goes. That's perfect. It looks like our build is almost done. Let's take a look at it. Now we could have added another step that would do a curl to make sure our function was running. That might be an interesting thing to add in our next revision, but it looks like our function is done. That's great. We'll come in here to Azure Functions, or to the Azure portal, and let's take a look at the functions that got deployed. It's loading. There's Hello Azure. Perfect. So here in Hello Azure, I have function keys. Now, these function keys are specific to this function, but I also have function keys specific to the app as a whole. So these are the keys that we'll need to pass either in the query string or in a header to be able to authenticate to this function. Let's go back into our functions and take a look at the function keys specific to this function run. Obviously, shortly after doing this demo, I'm going to go change this key, but let's copy that key. We'll head out to Azure Functions, to the URL for this, and we'll say code equals that code. And there we go. This HTTP triggered function executed successfully. Pass a name in the query string or in the request body for a personalized response. Okay, and name equals Rob. Hello, Rob from Serverless Days A and Z. That is perfect. So we saw how easy it was to build and deploy our Azure function from start all the way up to publishing to Azure. Let's do a little bit more and let's build a DevOps pipeline for pull requests. We don't want it to actually publish to Azure Functions on a pull request, but we do want it to validate. We could choose slots if we wanted to go that direction, but let's do this. Git pull. Ooh, git branch -u origin main git pull. Okay. So now here on our local copy of this repository, we have this build pipeline, and it specifically works on main. Let's add a new file, and we'll call this pull requests.yaml. And let's start by grabbing all of the steps here. Now in this case, we won't publish, we'll just build Azure Functions, and we can do it on all of the branches that are not main, and we can do it on pull request. Now in this case, you can do a pull request to any branch, and we'll kick off this process. Now, what are the steps that we want to do? We still want to check out our code. We still want to set up .NET Core. We still want to build and test and publish, but we don't want to publish it to Azure Functions. So we'll do all of the steps right up until publish to validate that this function works correctly, but we won't actually send it up. While we're here, let's also update the README with a little doodad that will show us the build status. We'll come back here into Actions. And right here, we can go grab the status badge. Perfect. So let's copy the status badge markdown and set it in place right here at the top of our README. Let's take a look at the content that we have ready to go. Well, we have one change in our README. Let's stage that one. We have a new file for our pull request. Add PR workflow and status badge. Commit. Git status. Okay, we've got one new request, git push origin main. Now we've committed some code to main, and so we would expect not the PR workflow to kick off, but rather the main workflow to kick off. Let's go back up to GitHub, and let's take a look at our actions and see if it's running. Yep, we've got a new build running. This is great. Let's take a look at that build. It's starting to do all of the pieces. It checked out our code. It's doing the .NET Core build. Starts off with restoring our NuGet packages. And then here's the .NET Restore. Next up, it's going to do the .NET build. This is cool. Yep, the .NET build succeeded. Now let's do the publish to get to the dist folder. Now we're deploying that content up to Azure, and we'll get our new content, our new version of our function published into place. This is perfect. Go, 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 go. I love that our secrets are not exposed here. Not in the portal, not in the logs, not in the source code. It looks like our app is almost ready to go. Is it ready? Is it gonna go green? Yes, it looks like it did. The build succeeded. Let's go to our home page, and now we see we have the badge showing that it's passing. Our function still works correctly. It looks like it's spinning up still, jitting, and thus the benefit of maybe doing a quick curl inside the build definition. It looks like that worked out great. So in this demo, we saw how easy it was to scaffold up an Azure Function project, scaffold up an Azure Function inside that project, publish all that code up to GitHub, and ultimately build a DevOps pipeline that is able to do some really cool things with that content. We published that up to Azure Functions, and we got to experience that Azure Function running successfully. You can go grab the code for this from github.com/robrich/levelupdevops GitHub Actions Azure Functions. And that code that we just built live is now up on GitHub right now for your use. It's so much fun getting to join you here at Serverless Days ANZ. If you have questions, hit me up in the spot that our conference has organized, or tweet me at rob_rich, or send me an email from robrich.org. Thanks for joining us today.